السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد. In a few minutes we summarize our discussion from previous weeks, and we said that we would allocate a few Jumu'ah in order to talk about the matter of rizq and earning a livelihood, and to understand the belief that is expected from the believer, from the mu'min. We said that we believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the provider. He provides all of His creation. Some are provided more than others. The decision is made by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The one who is pleased with the decision of Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be pleased with them. And the one who is displeased with the decision of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be displeased with them. And since we are seeking provision from Allah and working to earn a livelihood, we should do so in ways that are pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ways that are permitted. For when we do that, we are rewarded for our efforts. And to avoid the earning a livelihood through means that are impermissible, that are haram. For in doing that, we earn the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we accumulate sin, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removes barakah from our rizq. And then last week we talked about, we gave the keys to barakah, if you like. The things that we do that will acquire blessing in our sustenance when we receive it from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We talked about being conscious of Allah and the fear of Allah, seeking forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We talked about dua. We talked about spending in ways that are pleasing to Allah. So spending in charity, the more one gives, the more Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestows His favors upon a person and grants them barakah in their provision. We talked about maintaining the ties of kinship, for in that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so being at the service of parents and family members, that is also a way in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will increase our rizq. And all of this is taken from the teachings of Islam. For it should not be understood when we mention ahadith or verses of the Quran that encourage us to renounce the world, give up the world, and work for akhirah. This should not be misunderstood, that the believer is expected to give up everything in dunya and to be working for akhirah. For dunya is the place to prepare for akhirah. This worldly life that has been given to us, this lifespan of 60, 70, 80 years, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala places into this world to prepare for akhirah. And part of the preparation of akhirah is to fulfill our needs and our necessities in accordance to the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there is no differentiation. We do not differentiate in Islam between the work that you do for akhirah and the work that you do for dunya. An example: a need of a human being is to eat. The non-believer will eat for a number of reasons. One is to satisfy their hunger, to nourish their body, and to enjoy and take pleasure in the food which they consume. They will not concern themselves about where the food comes from. They will not concern themselves about wastage. The believer will do the same thing. The believer also needs to eat in order to survive. However, the intentions are, first of all, I am eating because it is a command of Allah. Because Allah says, "Kulu mimma fil ard." eat of that which we have provided for you. So I am fulfilling a command of Allah. And I have been given a trust, which is this body and physical health, that I have been commanded to protect and to take care of. This is the second. The third, nourishing my body in order to gain energy to fulfill my needs and to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to serve His creation. And I have been commanded to eat only from lawful and halal means. I cannot eat from haram. And I have been commanded to take as much as I need and not be from those who cause corruption by wasting. And so you have what? If a person follows these etiquettes, every morsel of food they are taking, alongside satisfying their hunger, alongside taking pleasure and enjoying, they are getting reward of worship. So likewise, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Kullu nasi yaghdu." Kullu nasi yaghdu. In the morning, everybody comes out. People leave their homes, seeking what? A livelihood. What is the attitude of the non-believer? Why does he come out of his house in the morning or in the evening? When he goes out to work, why does he come out? What are the intentions? Pay the bills. This is important. Then put food on the table for the people of his family. What else? To get enough wealth or money in order to buy luxuries, buy things that will bring comfort, or to entertain himself, or go on holidays. What else is there? No, we're talking about a non-believer. And so naturally what happens to the non-believer? He doesn't think about, first of all, he doesn't think about halal and haram means. That's one. He doesn't think about others in terms of how he's earning a living. As long as I'm paid, I don't care what happens to others. Whether they're being benefited or harmed doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is that I take my wage at the end of the month and I have, okay. And then he looks at also what pays the most, right? Because there are all of these needs that have to be paid for. And so I need to find the quickest way to make a buck. What is the guidance of Islam? We've already said that we are fulfilling a command of Allah, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He mentions, He splits the day into two parts, your 24 hours. So وَجَعَلْنَا اللَّيْلَ لِبَاسًا وَجَعَلْنَا النَّهَارَ مَعَاشًا. Your night is to rest. This is a recommendation. If you're working at night, it's okay. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I created the night for what? For resting. And the day for earning a livelihood, for living. So it is a command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We already said, هو الذي جعلكم الأرض ذلولا فامشوا في مناكبها in Surah Tabaraka, a verse. And then in Surah Jumu'ah, when Salah is over, go and seek the provision of Allah. So the believer, when he comes out of his home, he does so with what? The first intention is, I am coming out to fulfill a command of Allah. And I know that Allah is the provider. I don't rely on my work. I know that Allah is the one who is going to provide. But I have been commanded to seek sustenance through work, number one. Number two, that he is going to look after the needs of his family, because this is also an obligation. And Rasulullah said that he listed the best way to spend money, one's earned money, and he said that one of the best ways is to do what? To spend it on your family members and to fulfill the needs of your family members. Number two. So in this one we are equal. Believer, non-believer, we both have the same. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed this sense of rahmah, mercy and responsibility in the heart of the parents, that they have to look after their children. Number 2. Number 3, why else would a believer earn a living or go out to work? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He has made us representatives, Khalifa in the earth, which means that the earth is entrusted to the human being. And He says in the Quran, وَاسْتَعْمَرَكُمْ فِيهَا, that Allah placed you on earth in order to promote. Isti'mar is what? To promote growth and building. And I don't mean, I'm not saying this because currently this is what we hear. The current government is saying that the way out of the financial or economic turmoil today is to promote growth. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's messenger taught us that if Qiyamah starts and a person is planting something in the ground, then they should continue. For what? This is considered an act of worship and fulfilling a command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so what the believer is looking for is to benefit himself and also to benefit others. Because the most beloved creation to Allah are those who are most beneficial to others. And so he differs from the non-believer or the weak believer who only thinks of himself and his family and says what happens to the rest is of no interest to me. So in our line of work, we should always think about how am I benefiting others. And this is why actually when we say that there are certain things that you can do, is considered, certain types of work is considered halal. Certain types of work is considered haram. Why is it considered haram? Is it because you're taking anything away from Allah? Is it because you're going to earn more than you would earn if you were doing halal? Why is it haram? Because it harms people. And Allah wants you to benefit people. And if you cannot benefit people, at the very least, do not harm someone. It is not possible that you come and pray in the masjid and you come for Jumu'ah and you fast the month of Ramadan and you give your zakah and then you go and earn a livelihood through means in which you are harming, physically and actively harming people. It does not, it is contradictory and you are going against the essence of your faith and your belief. Rasulullah ﷺ said, Irhamu man fil ard, have mercy on the dwellers of the earth. Man fil ard, he said. Whether they are believer, non-believer, whether they are human, non-human, any living creature, we are sent as mercy. So irhamu man fil ard, yarhamukum man fil sama. If you show mercy to others, Allah will show mercy to you. Ar-rahimuna yarhamuhum ar-rahman. Those who are merciful will gain the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then man la yarham la yurham. The one who doesn't show mercy, the opposite, hurts others, then he will not, that person, he or she cannot expect the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was questioned about a woman who only prays the 5 daily prayers, only fasts Ramadan. She doesn't do any extra deeds, but she is good to her neighbors and good to the people that are around her. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said this woman is from the dwellers of paradise. And then he was asked about a woman that prays at night and fasts during the day, but through her tongue she hurts what? Her neighbors and the people that she associates with. Rasulullah said, Hiya fin nar. Regardless of the worship, she will enter hellfire. Why? Because she is hurting and harming people. Rasulullah was questioned about he said about the woman that will enter hellfire because of a cat. He said, she did not feed the cat and did not allow for the cat to go and seek its sustenance itself. And so Rasulullah said, because of a cat, hurting a cat will land the person in hellfire. How about if my line of work is hurting people around me? This is why, you'll hear fatwa such as that working for a bank is not permissible. Why? Because the banking institution is based on what? On riba, usury, which is exploiting the need of other people. And so you are hurting others, you are harming others, so it is not permissible. And so the third intention, we said the first intention is it is a command of Allah, and this is why I'm leaving my home and going and seeking a sustenance. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that the best money that you spend or you consume is the money that you have earned through the work of your hand. And we mentioned, I think last week or the week before, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, وَإِنَّ دَاوُودَ عَلَيْهِ السَّلَامِ Dawood alayhi salam earned a living through his work. Why does he mention Dawood when all Anbiya worked? All Anbiya, and we've mentioned before, right? Nuh alayhi salam was a carpenter, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a shepherd, and Musa alayhi salam was a shepherd. Why does Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mention Dawood here specifically? Do you know that Dawood worked for his sustenance? Why? Can you think? He was king. He didn't need to work. Dawood alayhi salam and Sulaiman alayhi salam are the two messengers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that were made what? Kings. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them great fortune and wealth and control over wealth. But he refused to spend from that, and he did so through his own. Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu. Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu was a trader. He was a merchant. And so when he received Khilafah the next day, as usual, he was going to the market in order to work. On the way, Umar radiallahu anhu met him and said, what are you doing? He said, well, I'm going to work. He said, you cannot do so. If you work, then who's going to deal with the affairs of the state? Somebody needs to take it. Well, he said, where am I going to get my sustenance from? So he said, I think that consulting other companions, what we will do is we'll allocate and we'll give you a wage in order to satisfy or fulfill the needs of your needs and the needs of your family, and so that you don't have to work. So he accepted. The Sahaba radiallahu anhu majma'in consulted amongst themselves, and they allocated a certain amount. When Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu died, he only ruled for 2 years and a few months. Just before his death, his wasiyah was, and he asked Aisha radiallahu anha, or Asma, one of his daughters, to whom he had given a piece of land. He said, could you please give that to what? Baytul Mal, return it to Baytul Mal. So that everything that I have taken from public funds is what? Replenished and repaid. So he refused to do what? To sustain himself except with what he has earned himself. And so it is a command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I am going to take care of my subordinates or the people who are under my care, because Rasulullah said, كَفَى بِالْمَرْءِ إِثْمًا, it is enough as a sin that a person fails in their responsibility towards the people in their care. Right? Man ya'ul, and from that comes iyal. We say iyal are children because they are under our care. That's why they're called iyal. So this is number 2. We said number 3 is what? Realization that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded me as a human being and as a believer that I have to do what? Promote growth and rebuild and build the earth, and that I am rewarded for this. And number 4, that I need to do what is beneficial for people and what is going to serve people and people's interest. And so anything, any work that brings benefit to the environment or to the people, this is praiseworthy, and for this a person is going to be rewarded. And then any work that harms the environment or harms the hurts the people is going to be considered as sinful. And so in selecting our work, this is okay. You might say, well, I'm already doing what I'm doing for the last 20 years. What good is it that you tell me now? Okay, I can't change my career now. It's too late. It's important in the education of our children, because we are living in a world that tells children what? What is driving the education of our children? What is motivating them? Money. Either it is money or pleasure. Do what you enjoy. We do not have that in the ethos of Sharia does not tell you do what you enjoy. Do what you're good at and what can be beneficial for others. And take, a position of nobility instead of only focusing on making as much as you can in the shortest time span in order to enjoy yourself with that wealth. Or the fallacy that you should do what you enjoy. Now, when you live only for dunya, look, Rasulullah says that it is better for one of you to go to the woods and to gather wood. People would gather wood and then bring it into town and sell it in the market so people can use it for heating and cooking and what have you. He said that is better than asking of people. And so he doesn't mention like a very sophisticated work. It's very simple, and it requires actually a lot of effort. But it does two things. One is it protects you from asking people and begging others. And number two, it is beneficial for others because they're going to come and take it off you and make use of it, and it is beneficial. This is only when you have akhirah and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your belief and in your mindset. But if you only live for this world, it's natural that you are going to look for something. You're going to spend 8 hours of your day, 40 hours in a week minimum, right, doing something. It has to be enjoyable because that defines life for an unbeliever. I am here to enjoy myself, and so it's natural that a person is going to opt in for work that they are going to enjoy. But that is not the case for the believer. Now you have conversations with our youth, and you find like a 17, 18-year-old, and you ask them what they want to do in life, and they want to become a football player. And so, where's the sense in that? Who do you serve? What good is it? But it's in a society that is after wealth and fame, that is noble, right? They're the best paid workers on earth, right? And so there is an attraction to that. But as a believer, what good is that? Okay, the only thing that is good is that the person is actually running after a ball in order to earn a living. And so that is better than asking. Okay, it's halal. Nobody says it's haram. But should it be something that you aspire for or to? No. And so at a very young age, these discussion takes place in schools, and children are asked, what do you want to do? And everything that our children ask your child and say, what do you want to do when you grow up? And you'll hear all sorts of things, zookeeper and footballer and fireman and all of these. YouTuber, film actor, and all of these things. Why? Because they're affected by what they see. Now our job is not only to teach them that you have to pray salah, and it is not only to teach them, and there are people who have studied media and filmmaking and what have you, and then they become practicing and they realize, what, I can't earn a halal living in that. So what they have to turn to, and so all of that time spent in education and preparing oneself for the work market is wasted. And so our job is not only to teach them tajweed and Quran and pray salah, but rather these conversations are important so that they understand their purpose. So my purpose as a human being is to worship Allah. That is for my akhirah. And that is for my personal spiritual gain. And then I have another purpose or another responsibility and duty, and that is to fulfill my needs and the needs of the members of my family. For that, I am going to educate myself and I am going to have to work. Now, what line of education should I take? You find a large number of university students, after 1 or 2 years, or maybe when it's too late and they have graduated, they're disillusioned, all right? And so you ask them, why did you do that degree? That's what I thought I enjoyed. That's not. What we should gear our children for is to see, naturally Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us different. And He gave us strengths, right? And so what you need to look for in your child in order to guide them in their education is, what are their strengths? What comes easy? What are they going to excel in? Because excellence is required in Sharia, right? Ihsan, and the Rasulullah says, "Inna Allah kataba al-ihsana fi kulli shay or ala kulli shay." That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prescribed excellence in all matters, in all things. So yes, you have to pray in an excellent manner, but you also need to work in an excellent manner, right? And in order to do that, you have to prepare yourself for it, and that is through the education system. And so if we do all of these things, then we can truly consider ourselves to be Khalifatullah fil ard. هو الذي جعلكم خلائف في الأرض. We are representing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because we have taken everything that is expected of us in our Sharia and we have implemented it in terms of, and this is what the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not pray 5 salah. Rasulullah said, Bunya al-Islam. These are the pillars of Islam. Have you ever heard of somebody telling you that, well, I need a home for my family, and then they put 5 pillars and then they say, that's it, my job is done? 5 pillars for what? You don't have walls, you don't have a roof, you don't have furniture, you don't have carpet, right? And so all of these things are needed in order to complete this building. We've taken 5 pillars of Islam, khalas, that's it, I do 5, I'm going Jannah. But he says, those are what? They're the pillars. That's what the rest of the deen stands on. So what is the rest of the deen? The rest of the deen, the 5 pillars is this is what? Your relationship with Allah. And then you have your relationship and duty to your own self. And then you have your relationship and your duty to your family members. And then humanity at large. And so when we take these points of guidance from our Sharia, then we will truly be fulfilling what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala expects of us. And every step and every little effort that is made on this path is going to be what? An act of worship, a means of reward, and gaining the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us more understanding and to enable us to live accordingly. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.